So about this time last year, I went to the hospital for my 36-week check with my sandwich in one hand and my Yeti cup in my other hand. And my OB-GYN says to me, "Stop eating, your baby's coming." This is the first time I'm telling this story on the internet, and it's a story I love to tell. Don't ever get me wrong. Like every time everybody says, "Oh, tell me your birth story," I'm always excited. And I thought that, this was the most appropriate time, April being C-section awareness month and all. I thought it would be best to share my C-section story with you guys, birth story. Let me backtrack a little bit. During my pregnancy, I'd had issues with like itching throughout, and if you followed me, if you're like on my close friends, you already know how bad it got. Also had issues with reduced fetal movement, meaning the fetus wasn't moving as much as or kicking as much in the womb as usual. It's something you're told to monitor, to track, because it could be a sign of distress, a sign that something is wrong, and a sign that you need to get to the hospital ASAP. On the 18th of March, we had the gubernatorial elections, and I voted. But I had noticed that I hadn't been feeling my baby move as much from the night before. And I was like, you know what, let me just watch this and see how it goes. I watched for a bit more, and then by early afternoon, I started to get very worried. My OB-GYN had told me a couple of stories about his patient who had reduced fetal movement, and then it didn't end well. And he was like, you know what, if this happens again, I had experienced reduced fetal movement once in my, I think, second trimester. This was the second time I'd experienced it. And so after, feeling that way again, after I voted and all, and I went to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, they called my OB-GYN because he wasn't on call. Only a GP was around, and so they called my OB-GYN, and they had to go pick him with the ambulance because it was a public holiday, no movement, and also the only way they could get him was, letting them know that it was an emergency. So the ambulance went to get him. When he came, we did the whole checks. Everything seemed fine. The ultrasound guy checked, baby, and everything seemed fine. But he was like, you know what, let's be extra sure and do, a lot more checks. They sent the ambulance to get the obstetric technician, ultrasound technician, something like that. He specializes in ultrasounds for fetuses or fetus, whatever. And so they got him, and we checked, to be sure that the baby's brain was getting enough oxygen, that at no time had the fetus brain been deprived of oxygen. Just checked a lot of things, and everything seemed fine. And he was like, you know what, something seems to be wrong. Your baby doesn't seem to be comfortable or okay, and I think she's sending us signs. If anything comes up again, just come to the hospital immediately. But besides that, this was a Saturday. I was to see him for my 36-week checkup on Monday. So he's like, if nothing happens before that, come to the hospital on Monday, and then we'll see what we're going to do about accelerating the birth process. Maybe pick a date closer than my due date to bring the baby out. We're still talking about, do I get to have a vaginal birth? Do I get to do a C-section? Whichever one I prefer. And he's like, you know what? Let's just take it one day at a time and see what the situation warrants, right? So the next day, my body continues to itch really badly, and I try the whole day not to take any Piriton. Now, the reason why I wasn't going to take Piriton was Piriton is a drug that passes through the placenta to the baby, right? You know how Piriton makes you feel? Sleepy, drowsy, slow. And it was the same thing that would happen to the baby. And my doctor was like, I don't want you to take this drug and your baby is not moving. And if there's a genuine problem, we don't know, because we just assume that it's the Piriton. Meanwhile, it might not be the Piriton causing her reduced movement. So he's like, stay off Piriton, please. It's important to note that we had tried a lot of meds like during this pregnancy, because the itching was bad. Like, it was so bad. If you're my close friends, you know what I went through. Like, it was bad. Monday I itched the whole day, my entire body, and I was like, you know what, I can't wait for Monday to come. I'm going for my appointments and I'm going to tell him, yo, we need to figure out how to bring this baby out. I can't do this anymore. I talked to my parents and I'm like, look, the doctor is saying this and that, and just in case baby has to come out maybe this week or next week or by C-section or whatever, just giving you guys a heads up. My husband and I, we all discuss it, and we pray about it. We anoint the baby, we anoint myself, we pray, and we all stand in agreement that all will go well. So Monday comes, I go to the office. Now, if you're in the corporate world, how Monday mornings go. Weekly meetings. I have my weekly meeting, I make my presentation, I do everything, and after that I'm like, okay, let me go and see my doctor and tell him, let's make some plans. I get to the hospital. On my way, I stop at City Subs. I buy a breakfast sub, and with my Yeti cup with my ice cubes in it, I get to the hospital. And as I get to my OB/GYN's office and I sit, I'm like, guy, my body's itching. I've just done everything not to take Piriton, but we need to make a plan because I can't last long the way I feel. So he's like, babe, that's your last meal for the day, stop eating. I didn't even finish my sandwich. He's like, stop eating, we are bringing this baby out today. I'm like, what? As in, to how? What do you mean? I only just came to tell you so that we'll prepare maybe next week, maybe in 2 weeks. We can't wait for 40 weeks. This baby needs to come out soon, and you're telling me today I wasn't prepared. But I had to get prepared, and get my mind right. So he's like, you know what, because of everything the baby's been through, I want to deliver the baby into the hands of the pediatrician. So I'm trying to get myself up to speed and just in the right frame of mind. And he's like, I know you're confused, just calm down. Your baby's baked enough for lack of a better word. I can't remember what exactly he is, but he's like, your baby's fine, and to be very honest, I think your baby's safer outside than inside. We've, had a series of complaints, and I don't feel exactly comfortable with, the baby being inside the womb right now. For some reason, she's not comfortable. We need to bring her out. And I agree with him. After a bit of, asking some questions and all, I agree with him. And then we decide I'm going to go home, bring my hospital bag, and come back in the evening to prepare for a C-section by 6 o'clock. We had talked about doing being induced and all that. By the time we talked about the pros and cons, I just settled for the C-section. And then he calls my HMO and says, let's schedule a C-section for Mrs. Shoyebo for today, an emergency C-section. And so I tell him bye, I throw my sandwich away, and then I go back to the office. On my way to the office, I was probably 5 minutes away from the hospital, and a number calls me, and I pick the phone, and it's my OB/GYN. Before this, he didn't have my number. He's never called me, and I've never called him as well. But he calls me, and he's like, I'm so sorry, I had to get your number from someone. I'm like, fine, of course, you are my doctor, go ahead. And he's like, you need to get to the hospital by 2 o'clock. This was already 12 or past 12. And he's like, you need to get to the hospital, get back. By 2 p.m., the baby needs to be out. I had to say that the pediatrician has to leave early. She's closing at about 2 o'clock. And that's why he wants me to be back and ready to have the surgery by 2. He wanted the pediatrician to receive the baby after he delivers the baby, right, out of the uterus and the amniotic sac. He wants to deliver the baby to the pediatrician rather than the midwives, because if the pediatrician closes, the midwives will have to do that until the next day when she comes and does her ward rounds. Then she'll see the baby. But because of the issues we had complained about, he just wanted to be safe. He was just playing it safe. If there's anything, I want a professional to be available to handle the situation and not, leave things to chance. And I was very happy with that. So I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But I'm like, gosh, I was still going to go and think about this. All of a sudden, I have to do it now. I have to come. I didn't have room to think too much. I had to get back to the hospital ASAP. I'm like, okay, not a problem. Bye, doctor. See you soon. And I called the phone. I called my husband. You need to pack the bag and start coming. I can't come home anymore. I'm going to go to my office, get my handbag, and come back. I call my parents, I call my sisters, I wake my sister in Canada, yo, baby's coming today, guys. It's faster, it's sooner than we expected, but we already prayed about this, and my mom and my dad are like, don't worry, God is in control, just be calm, we're praying for you. If you need anything, let us know, we're coming to the hospital. And so I get to my office, carry my handbag, I tell my colleague, oh, baby might be coming today. Of course I knew the baby was coming, but I just didn't want to, panic, send him into panic mode. So as I'm heading back to the office, I stop at Blanco. I buy adult diapers for myself, and then I buy Lady Sept and a few other things they asked me to bring in the hospital. Then on Instagram, I get on Instagram and I order Enfamil from a vendor for her. That's the liquid one that you can just pour in like a bottle or put a nipple on and give the baby to drink, because I was just trying to be prepared. Then I ordered diapers as well. And I head back to the hospital. Once I get to the hospital, the nurses are like, oh, hi, Mrs. Shoiba, please come to your room. They take me to my room, show me where to drop my bags and things I brought. They give me my robes to change into. I change and they take me to the theater. Then they come in and tell me, oh, we're going to insert the catheter. I'm like, what's going on? What's catheter? I pick my phone. I'm chatting my sisters up. I'm like, oh, guys, because both my sisters have had C-sections. I'm like, please, this catheter thing, is it painful? What does it do? How does it feel? Blah, blah, blah. Does it take long? What should I expect? My sister is like, oh, they're going to this. Before she even talks, the nurse comes back and we're like, oh, we're just going to shave you and insert the catheter. I'm just like, oh, is it painful? Is it going to be painful? She's like, no, you're not going to feel it. Don't worry. I'm like, yeah, right. And then I lie down. She shaves me. And next thing she's like, I'm done. I'm like, oh, done with what? Everything. Honestly, I didn't feel it, and I was so happy about that. They wheel me into the theater and they're like, oh, we have to start. I'm like, my husband is not here yet. No, we have to wait. They're like, madam, we cannot wait for your husband. We need to start. Besides, he's not going to be in this room with you. I'm like, what do you mean? That's not how I see it done in the movies, other people's vlogs. No, my husband has to be here. I've already planned so much. They're like, ma'am, we cannot contaminate this room. Your daughter is premature. She's coming a bit earlier than expected. We want to contain this room as much as possible, ensure it's safe for her. So I can't argue with that now, so I just leave it. No problem. They put the epidural, which I didn't even feel. Like, it was so seamless, pain-free, nothing. Like, it was the best. Like, my entire delivery surgery was the best. They were so professional. Everything was well done. I didn't have a single complaint with how they treated me, how gentle and patient they were. And big ups to my hospital, yo, the very best. I was so scared of having my baby in Nigeria, but I feel like they blew my mind. Like, they treated me so well. And Palon Memorial, I just had the best experience, and it's like, they're like family to me, honestly. So they start the process, they cut me open, they bring the baby out, they give her to the pediatrician, and they're like, and then my OB-GYN goes, thank God we brought her out today, because her umbilical cord was wrapped really tightly around her neck, and so that was probably the reason why she was distressed, and sometimes she wouldn't move. Maybe the thing will be tight and then she won't be able to breathe properly, and it will relax and she'll move. And he's just like, you know what, let's just be thankful, because this could have gone any way, so I was really thankful to God for that. They sew me back up and they tell me they were going to give me something to make my uterus contract and reduce in size and stop bleeding, and that it was going to make me shake. And if you watched my C-section video, you heard me talk about the shakes, and so I had the shakes for a bit, and eventually when it calmed down, they brought my baby to me to hold. By this time they had wheeled me to the recovery room. Then again, you probably heard me talk about getting up. It was the hardest thing. Standing up from that bed, my recovery bed, felt like my organs were about to come out of my vagina. It was the worst feeling in the world. But I did it, and I went to my room, and the rest is history. My beautiful baby is born today, and it was a very good experience. Even though, there's so much about C-section births that, a lot of women don't talk about, which I have to say, as women, we need to do a lot better. We need to educate other women. We need to talk more about these things so people know what to expect. A lot of the things I learned about C-section, I learned them just like last minute. I never knew I was going to have a C-section birth, and then I learned them during the recovery process. I learned them while I was going into the theater. I learned them through chatting with my sisters and Googling the little time that I had to come to terms with the fact that I was having a C-section, right? It's not something anybody can really prepare you for, even after you've read and you've been told, but it would be good if a lot more women knew. And as women, we like to deal with so much pain. I don't know if we find joy in dealing with pain or being able to say, oh, I've been through that. There's no joy in it. Please lean on people when you can, accept support and help when you can, because C-sections are hard. At the end of the day, I just want to say, if you're a C-section mama, congratulations to you. Very well done. That thing was hard. If you had a vaginal birth as well, congratulations to you, because I have no idea how many hours you were in labor for. They always say, oh, C-section, the pain begins post-delivery, while for vaginal birth, your pain is before your baby comes out, and then that's the end. Whichever birth you choose, whichever one you end up having, voluntary or involuntary, it doesn't really matter. What's most important is your baby is safe, your baby is fine, you mama, you are fine. That's all that matters. And so I will always say, choose the birth that's best for you considering the circumstances. And if you have your mind set on something and you've put it in prayer, just know that God is in control. Okay, I can't reiterate how important it is to put your plans into God's hands if you are Christian, because I feel like He knows what's best for you. None of the options is better than the other or inferior or superior. Just remember that what's most important is ensuring the safety of mother and child, okay? And once that's covered, yeah, fine. Whichever one you choose as well, you will recover fine, okay? Don't take it as don't look at it like you failed or be disappointed in yourself. Doesn't really matter. It's just an extra story for you to tell. So that's my C-section birth story. If you want to share yours with me, let me know in the comments or wherever. Thank you guys for watching. Bye. Mwah.